Well, hello, Canadian Campaholic here, coming to you from Point Farms Provincial Park, our second trip of the 2023 season, and I thought for this video we would do something a little different rather than just boring you with sunsets and campfires and the usual stuff. We would talk a little bit about our tips and advice for anybody that wants to go camping with small children. We've got 4 kids. My son is 13 and my oldest daughter's 11, and then we've got a 2.5-year-old and an 8-month-old. And as you can imagine, in a small camper like ours, a 19-foot interior, 22-foot total length, it can be interesting. And I know that there are probably folks out there that are considering getting into camping and RVing, but they have small children and they're not really sure, is it feasible? Would it be too stressful? So this video, which hopefully isn't too long, will give you some tips and hints on what we recommend for camping with small kids. Come along with us. Clothes, and more clothes. Not only for the baby, because, they throw up sometimes or they poop or whatever, but for kids too. They get in muddy puddles, they go to the beach, get covered in sand, they get food all over them. But you as the parent, you're going to get messy too. So make sure you bring lots of clothes, probably more than you think you would need. Not many provincial parks have playgrounds, or at least not most of the ones I've been to. So if your kids are really big into playgrounds, that is something to consider. We used to go to Port Burwell Provincial Park a lot when our eldest kids were little, because it had a great park. So think about those activities, think about which ones are important, but be prepared that you might not find a lot of playgrounds in the provincial park itself. But you never know, there may be small towns or villages nearby that have a perfectly adequate playground. You gonna go on the swing? Okay. Also make sure you bring lots of tools, and heck, maybe some super glue and some duct tape, so that when your 2-year-old says, "Daddy, I broke it," you have a way to fix it, at least to get you through this trip until you can buy a replacement. Another important tip is if you're going to go anywhere near a beach with your children, bring towels, changes of clothes, or even appropriate swimwear, because they will want to go in the water, they will get wet, and then that can complicate your day's plans. Prepare for everything. Another important tip is food. Snacks, more snacks, and lots of healthy food choices. Because all the fresh air and the exercise will probably make your kids more hungry than they are at home. Hard to believe, but true. So don't underestimate the amount of food that you need to bring for the little ones. You gonna have some waffles? Another item that I do want to touch on as it relates to taking kids camping is the idea of safety. I'm not here to suggest that camping is inherently dangerous. I'm not here to cause a debate on, helicopter parenting and, all these people saying, when I was a child, we went out in the sun with no sunscreen, no bug spray, and we survived. Everybody, will have their own preference as to what level of protection or care they provide to their child. But I do think in the situation of camping, there's some safety things you've got to consider. One is going to be water safety. If you're going to be swimming in the lake, if you're going to be fishing near a river, you see us standing on the dock by a fairly deep river, or maybe going canoeing or kayaking. If you have small children, then you might want to consider water safety considerations. Are you going to put them in a life jacket? Are you going to try to teach them about, don't go too close to the edge? I've seen situations at the fishing dock at Pinery where small toddlers have got too close and fallen headfirst into the river. The parents jump into action to rescue the poor kid. In one spot at Pinery, though, it could be dangerous because there's a very large snapping turtle that lives underneath that dock, and I dread to think the harm that thing could cause if a toddler's toes or feet got too close. So water safety is one consideration. The other one is, of course, fire safety. If you're going to go camping, got to have a campfire, right? But campfires are hot. The metal enclosures that you build them in, they get hot. So it's important to talk to your kids about don't run near the fire pit. Don't get too close to the fire pit. And even more subtle things like roasting marshmallows or maybe using a sparkler, like teaching kids that the end of that roasting stick is going to be bloody hot. Don't touch it. Or when you're done with a sparkler, don't touch the end. It's incredibly hot and you can burn yourself. And sadly, my two eldest kids can attest to the fact that they've had a couple of little minor burns relating to those. The last two safety elements that I will touch on, of course, is going to be insects, particularly mosquitoes. I guess you could also argue ticks. And then, of course, UV and sun exposure. I'm going to preface this by saying that I'm not here to advocate either for or against these products. Again, they're your kids. You decide what works best for you. You make your own decision. Look up the facts, talk to your doctor, talk to your friends and family, and make a decision that works for you. Let's start with sun safety. So, if you're going to go out in the sun and the UV levels are very high and you have small kids, I think it's self-explanatory that you want to give them some sort of protection. Whether that's hats with wide brims, whether that's those, I think they call them rash guards, those tight shirts designed for swimming, that can help. Also, good old sunscreen, whether that's the spray-on stuff or the stuff in the cream. Yes, there are more natural versions of this that you can buy. There's various brands, various strengths with your SPF, but we try to do a combination of both because I'll be honest, folks, when I was a kid, growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, my parents were pretty laissez-faire, shall we say, with sunscreen, and we had a couple of instances where we got severely burnt at the beach, and it was very painful to go through that as a child. So sunscreen, definitely recommend that you keep that in mind and bring a lot of it. It's expensive, but it's worth it, but you will go through a lot. Next one, of course, is going to be bug protection. Mosquitoes can be a real pain, and so some sort of insect protection is a great idea. Again, there's a lot of debate about whether you should use a product with DEET or without DEET. There's a lot of conversations about the level of DEET that's in it. I myself, as an adult, use the Off Deep Woods spray. I think it's like 25-30% DEET. But I spend a lot of time by the campfire. I spend a lot of time out on hiking trails, and I want to make sure that it's something that works. This one is a family version. It is made by Off. I'm not sponsored by them, just the one we have. This one has got 7% DEET, but I think we've got another one that is more geared for littler kids. I think it's down to like 3 to 5% DEET. And again, yes, there are other natural alternatives that you can use, but regardless, the science shows us that mosquitoes can carry a lot of nasty illnesses, everything from West Nile to Zika to who knows what. And I don't want my kids dealing with that. If we want to dismiss that as being fear-mongering, well, let's water it down to the basics of it's bloody itchy and uncomfortable when you get a bunch of mosquito bites. And it's bad enough as an adult when you're covered in bites and you're scratching them. Imagine if you're just a little kid trying to deal with that. So not too fun. So yeah, just some extra little things that you need to consider.
And here's something that I just want to share. If you're contemplating camping with small kids and you're hesitant and you're worried it's going to be a hassle, my advice is make the effort. Get them interested in the outdoors and nature and quality time with the family when they're little. My two eldest kids were here at the beach. Ramey's 13, Violet's 11, and we started camping with them when they were 4 and 2, respectively, and they absolutely love being here. No Wi-Fi, no electronics, no VR, no YouTube or TikTok or anything like that, just us and the beach. And I honestly think that's great. They enjoy the finer things in life and the simpler things in life. Quality time with my wife and my kids in situations like this. It's why I'm a campaholic. It's why we come out as often as we do. And if I hadn't taken that leap when they were babies, if my wife and I hadn't taken all the steps to bring all the food and the clothing and the supplies and trying to be prepared for every possible situation, we would have missed out on this. So give it some thought, consider it. And you don't have to have an RV. I mean, you could start out in tents. That's how we started. We moved up to a tent trailer or a pop-up camper. We've moved up to a travel trailer now. Who knows, if I win the lottery, maybe I'll get a big giant truck again and get a fifth wheel. Who knows? Well, folks, that'll do it for this short video. I'm just sitting here with my son enjoying our last campfire of this trip. You've probably been watching the video thinking, Dan, these were very basic tips, and I already knew this. Well, guess what? It is basic. You know, the moral of the story is if you're nervous about going camping with kids, don't be. It's not a big deal. You know, do all the things that you do at home to be a good parent. Maybe kick it up a notch, extra supplies, extra clothes, extra bits and pieces. But beyond that, it's not a big deal. But anyway, we'll wrap this video up. Hope everybody else is getting a chance to get out and do some camping. The season is literally just kicking off for most people. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later.